Welcome to Friends with Fertility, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of fertility, reproductive health, and all the emotional journeys that are in between. I'm your host, Elizabeth King, a fertility expert dedicated to providing you with the knowledge, support, and inspiration you need on your path to parenthood. Whether you're just starting out, exploring your options, or looking for solidarity and advice, we are here for you. Let's embark on this journey together and turn uncertainty into empowerment and make friends with fertility. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Friends with Fertility. Today we have Dr. Marc Sklar, aka the Fertility Expert. He's a natural fertility specialist helping couples get pregnant for over 21 years. His mission is to help you feel hopeful and confident about your fertility journey again. In addition to his Doctorate of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, Dr. Sklar trained at the Harvard Medical School Mind Body Medical Institute. He is the creator of Fertility TV, marcsklar.com, and the reproductivewellness.com, and a fellow of the American Board of Oriental Reproductive Medicine and medical advisor for Symphony Natural Health. You got a full bio, Dr.
Yes.
Sklar. It was on that he's a co-founder and co-formulator of the Rejoova Fertility Supplement Line, as well as his online program. He also supports his community via his highly popular YouTube channel, Fertility TV, where he shares information-packed videos to educate followers on all things fertility. He lives in San Diego with his wife and two sons, and he has a clinic, Reproductive Wellness. And he also helps couples all over the world with fertility, which I think is a great place to jump off. And we will put all your links in the notes as well. But as far as this new world that we live in and being able to help patients and clients worldwide is pretty amazing, I think. Tell us a little bit about what you notice with people in different countries. For me, I'll start by saying we've worked with people in 23 countries around the world, and the fertility aspect of that really always comes down to the same things about how they're feeling emotionally about it and what the expectation is. And most of the protocols and things like that are all the same. The medications are the same, et cetera. And it really comes down to everybody feels the same internally around this experience around fertility. So what's your experience been, Dr. Sklar?
Yeah, somewhat similar. We work with couples from all over the world. The concerns, the issues, the things that come up invariably are the same across the board. And much of the treatment is the same across the board. Maybe one country's, trying something different than another and more advanced in one area than another. But in general, the approaches are the same. The biggest difference for me is culturally, how that's impacting their health, their lifestyle, their mindset around it, and how they approach fertility. There are some cultures that if you haven't been married and had a child by some young age, these individuals are shunned to some degree. It adds more stress. It's more of a burden for them. There's more familial pressure on some of these individuals. So from that perspective, I do find some differences here and there, but supporting a couple who's from India who lives in the United States is virtually the same as supporting a couple who lives in India currently, right? And has the same issues. Maybe that the biggest difference might be that in some of these areas of the world, they have a harder time getting some certain types of support or certain supplements that we need or whatever it might be. Many of the countries around the world are actually much easier to get a lot of the testing done than it is in some of the Western countries because there's just all these roadblocks around that, or can be. So those are probably the biggest differences that I notice.
Right. And the reason that I bring this up is because we do have an audience that is spanning the globe these days. And the fact that there's support in America right now, we have, all sorts of people to help on your fertility journey. I call it building your fertility team. And you may be in a place where you don't have that, but there are so many resources that you can still get remotely. And I think just thinking outside of that box and recognizing that even if you may be in Ecuador or you may be in India or wherever you may be, there is still help for you no matter where you're at. So reach out, have that conversation with your doctor Sklar, and see what can they do for you from afar. I think you'd be surprised how much support you can get and navigating your journey wherever you are.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I think has been wonderful about the internet and
Yes.
the ability for us to feel much closer and connected than we ever were. And I have so many individuals that reach out and just say, "Oh, I watched your videos and I started to change things and now I'm pregnant. Thank you so much." Right. So there's lots of ways, to your point, lots of ways that we can help couples on their journeys with their difficulties. It's just about being resourceful, reaching out and asking for help and getting the help that you need.
Right. And I want to just piggyback on that. I think that is a culturally sometimes that is not really a
Yeah.
thing, right? About asking for outside help, and you keep it as a family secret, especially around fertility in some of these cultures. And knowing that this is not a long term thing. Hopefully, you'll get maybe one tweak that you need to do with your thyroid or your diet, and maybe that's it, right? Knowing that reaching out for help does not a sign of weakness, doesn't mean something's wrong with you, doesn't mean whatever, and it's a short period of time. It may seem like you're in it that it's a long time, but you'll look back, I promise, and be like, oh, actually that went by pretty fast and I'm glad I reached out.
Actually, I would say it's a sign of strength, right? That you are recognizing within yourself that you need help and that you need to reach out to somebody else for that support. I think it really shows that sign of strength. Look, the way I view all sorts of coaching is that we have all had coaches and mentors over our lifespan, consciously or subconsciously. Maybe it was that fifth grade teacher that you really connected with. Maybe it was that college professor who you thought knew a lot and gave you a lot more attention, and you were able to, you know, move forward because of that individual. Maybe it was someone you in your profession career, and you're like, oh, I need someone to guide me in this area so that I can excel. We all have had teachers or coaches or mentors over our lifespan that have really impacted our life and allowed us to move on and progress and evolve to that next stage of things. To me, this is no different. Fertility coaching or any health coaching is absolutely no difference. Many of us just need that additional support so that you could take that burden off of yourself and allow someone to kind of guide you through that process who's been there before. And so maybe culturally or within your part of the world, that's not something that's done often, or it's, odd or uncommon, but it doesn't mean that it's not valuable and really can't be profound in its impact.
Agree. Couldn't
Yeah.
agree with you more. So how did you get into reproductive health? It's
It's a great question. Some of it was something that I just had an interest with. I found myself being interested in women's health just as I started getting into healthcare. But really, the switch that flipped things for me was a short time frame. It was about a 4 or 5 month time frame where I was working with one woman, and I was actually in my last year of training, and I was in the clinic at school, and she came to see me there. She had PCOS, and she had a really difficult time regulating her cycles, regulating ovulation. She had gone 4 to 6 months without cycles, periods of time without a bleed and without ovulation. And so within 4 months, I was able to help her regulate her cycle. She was having regular cycles and ovulation. She comes in one day and she says to me, she says, I know we were doing so well, but my cycle hasn't come again. I don't know what's going on. And she was so frustrated. She's like, we've tried. And I'm like, it's been 4 months. I'm like, this is a little strange. We've been doing really well. Before we kind of get worried and start to look someplace else, here's a pregnancy test. Go to the bathroom, take a pregnancy test, and come back. She comes out with this huge smile on her face. She's pregnant. She couldn't believe it. She was super thrilled. I was thrilled. She delivered her little baby, Faith, 9 months later, and I helped her with her next one after that. And it was that moment when she came out of the bathroom with a smile on her face that I just knew this was what I needed to do. Is even talking about it to this day, I get the chills
Same.
because it was
Getting
so profound to me. And as much as I helped her with her children and her family, I don't think she realizes to this day, I've said it many times, how impactful she was to my life and so many other lives, because I don't know what would have happened. Maybe I would have ended up here, but I know that moment really changed. It just said, this is what I want to do. This feeling is what I want to have. And that's, I just never really looked back from there. So,
Yeah, I couldn't
yeah.
agree with you more. One of my clients had a positive beta yesterday, and it's
Yeah.
the joy that you get from that is, or the ultrasound pictures or the newborn baby messages. I don't know that any other field you can have such, genuine excitement and joy for people as you do in this. It's because it's creating life and it's amazing. I feel so fortunate that we can be in the process of helping people on their journey. So do you spend most of your time in the acupuncture space, or where, like with this woman who had the baby Faith, what were you helping her with acupuncture at that time, or what was that?
Yeah, so at that time, I was helping her with acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and that was probably 22, 23 years ago. And for the first 10 plus years or so of my career, it was primarily focused on Chinese medicine. Um, and then in the last 11 years, I've really incorporated both Chinese medicine and functional medicine into my practice. And it's been roughly in the last 9 or 10 years that I started Fertility TV and my online coaching and so forth, where I can just reach more people. And that somewhat evolved from supporting couples locally. I wanted to create videos so I wasn't repeating myself so much. And
Right.
that's how that started. And then I started to be contacted from couples around the world saying, "Hey, can you help me?" And so then that's how that evolved over time. Now I do about 70/30. I'm 30% of the time in the clinic and 70% of the time supporting couples virtually. So that's
Right.
how my time is split. Yeah.
Honestly feel like every single day I get some sort of question about acupuncture and Chinese medicine. Does it really work? Do you think it's worth it? Do you think I should keep doing it? My answer is always yes, for a couple different reasons. One, the worst case scenario is you're being put somewhere for an hour and you have to stop, and it regulates your nervous system, even if it's for that small moment. If nothing else, that you don't believe in anything else, we know that you're literally, you can't move, right? You have needles coming out of your body and
Right.
you're
Yeah.
more on you. It's an interesting perspective because I also talk to a lot of MDs about it. And I feel like because acupuncture itself is a known thing where people, it's not a big secret about what it is, more MDs are getting on board with understanding the correlation between the significance with doing acupuncture and or Chinese herbs in relation to their cycles, whether it's trying to get pregnant naturally or going through any sort of ART. Have you found that there's been a big shift in that in the last few years? I would say in the last 10 years, maybe, that more of the MDs are on board with supporting that, as I call it again, the fertility team, so that you have your acupuncturist, you have your nutritionist, you have your coach, you have your MD, and everybody working towards the same goal of pregnancy.
Absolutely. I think the real pivot happened about 19, 20 years ago, and has slowly picked up from there when there was just more research coming out about how acupuncture can support IVF
Right.
specifically. And
Mhm.
as that research started to come out and couples really were requesting it, that started to move the needle a little bit more. In the last 10 years, I definitely feel like there's been a bigger increase in the acceptance and integration of acupuncture with IVF, and IVF transfers. And some of that, I think, is an evolution of just a younger generation of doctors coming out who have been more
100%.
accepting to it,
Yeah.
right? And it's been just more part of their more part of the culture and the life, so it's been more accepting of it. And then there's just been more research as well, so all of that has really helped with that integration.
Right. And I agree with you. I love this new generation of doctors coming up because they really do understand that there's a connection to the mind, body, spirit, the Chinese medicine, all of those things. They get that it's more than just the egg and the sperm and what they can do in a dish, so to speak. So when you
Yeah.
have a new client or patient that's coming to you and they've been trying for a while, what is it? What's the path that you take them on?
Yes. First and foremost, want to understand the history. Where have they been? What have they been through? What have their labs looked like over time, and where are they today? But I think a really important question is where do they want to go? How do they want to get there? And what are they open to? So that I understand how to look at their case and be able to make some recommendations. Someone who says, I can appreciate those individuals who do IVF, but that's not for me, right?
Right.
Like I'll never consider it. The
Right.
approach will be very different for that individual than that couple who says, we're open to IVF and donor egg and really everything. Our main goal is we just want to have a family and we don't care how we get there, right? So all of that really varies and the approach will be modified appropriately based on that. And certainly their age, not because of age itself, but because of family planning. How does age impact the timing of things and how we have to look at how much time we have and where we want to go?
Mhm.
Um, that's obviously a variable. But when I gather all their information, I'm assessing and diagnosing them from a Chinese medical perspective, from a functional medical perspective. I'm looking at what are their options with ART, and then I'm putting that all together to say, how are we going to get there? What's the final outcome? And couples who I think have the ability to conceive naturally, then I'm going to make those recommendations from the beginning. Like, I think you really have a chance to get pregnant naturally. And here are the steps we need to go there. We need to adjust diet and lifestyle and whatever else we need to incorporate into that process. Those who are much more open to IVF, and I do think that that would be a faster route and a better route for them, then we'll have that conversation. So I'm trying to meet the couple where they are,
Right.
and really support them to achieve those goals. But sometimes we have to have hard conversations. If they are really not open to assisted technologies, but their chances naturally are really low, we've got to have a conversation of what that really looks like. What's the reality of that? And for that individual who says, it doesn't matter to me, I'm never going to do IVF anyway. Okay, well, then we can go down this road and you could try and let's try to make this work. And for those
Right.
who say there's open, then, let's, how quickly do we need to go down that path? So those are the sorts of conversations that we're having and and that allows me to structure a plan and recommendations based on all of that.
Which is great and what I think everybody should do. And oftentimes that's not how it goes because sometimes the practitioners have it, they see the age, let's say, and they say automatically, this is what I
Yeah.
think we need to do. I mean, that happened to myself. I think after my second, I went into a doctor's office. He didn't even look at anything about me other than my age and said, you need a donor egg. And I was like, but I just had a baby like 5 minutes ago.
Right.
Like why
Right.
automatically say that. And so I, much as I've had three children over 41 naturally, I feel that it's something that we can achieve. And I often see people say, well, I had one, I'm lucky to have one over 40. I don't want to push my luck. And, I don't think it's possible. Obviously, it happened for me, and I have three healthy boys. I think it is possible, but I think we need to make sure that our bodies are doing what we need to do and with what we need to fuel. Now, I certainly help thousands of people with ART because, like you said, that's not really the case for most people, right? Let's be realistic in the fact that we were brought up if you're over 35, you're just not going to have a healthy baby, period. And, I think part of our educating people is not buying into that narrative that we were told for so long because there are things that we can do now for our body that we know we can improve egg health. We know we can improve sperm health. And, when we can get a healthy egg and healthy sperm, a healthy embryo is the result of that. And I think also, I would love your opinion on this too. The more that the awareness of social media with ART, people are more open to that. It's not as so jarring as it was even 7 years ago when I was told about having a donor egg, people see that more often, right? So they understand what that is. I was just at a medical conference a couple weeks ago and they were talking about the mitochondria donation. So now it's
Right.
possible that it is there's so many things that are happening in science that are incredible and a lot of ways to get to your baby. I think it's just a matter of figuring out and allowing yourself that grace to change your mind, right? Because I could come to you and say, I really don't want to do IVF. I really don't want any hormones added to my body or anything like that. But then as you go through, maybe you're like, I think I might be changing my mind. And that's sometimes hard to navigate with a couple too, because I see that the men sometimes are like, okay, I'm on board and I support that. But then the plan changes and they're like, wait, that wasn't the plan, you know?
Right.
How do you help people and couples go through when they do decide to change, a direction of what they may have thought one way of like, I'm never going to go down the IVF road to,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I do because I do actually want this baby more than I want to try to stay natural, so to
Right.
speak.
Yeah, it's not my agenda. I mean, I'm very clear when I work with couples that this is not about what I want for them.
Right.
It's about what they want and what they need, and I'm there to meet them. So if they change course in the middle and say, I think we've been trying for a while, it hasn't worked. We thought we weren't open, but now we're more comfortable to it. We're more open to it. Great. Let's have that conversation. What makes sense? Where do we start? Who do you start to work with? What options do you have available? So we'll absolutely have that conversation. My goal is that couples have a family. I
Mhm.
am personally not attached to how that happens. Yes, I mean, would I prefer that it happens naturally? Sure, everybody would prefer that it happens naturally the old-fashioned way. But that's not my end outcome. My end outcome is that they have a family and that they're content that they've had a family and that they can, have a family for generations. And so if that means IVF or donor or whatever it might be, as long as that individual is open to it, I'm completely open to it. I do think that with social media and all the information we have coming to us marketing wise, that yes, IVF has become more familiar and people are more accepting of it because of that. But I think on the flip side, that has pushed couples to maybe go that route probably prematurely. That
Mhm.
they said, oh, this is good. IVF is what everybody does. It works. That's my first line of treatment. That's where I'm going to go. And I don't think that's should be the case for many
Right.
couples. But that aside, I'm completely open to however that outcome happens. And really, my goal is to support them. So it's happened many times. They've said, no, I don't want. And then, like, you know what? We've been at this for a year and a half and we really want a baby. And I'm more comfortable with IVF than I thought it was. And so can we have that conversation? What does that look like? And let's go there. Let's do it. I just want that to happen. I do prefer that we've had a little bit of time to work on some of the root issues, that we've been able to lay some foundational things in place, that they've been able to work on their health and correct some of these things so that when they do go to IVF, that it's more effective and that they're going to have their success much faster. But that aside, I'm totally open to all of it.
Let's talk about that for a minute because I think people assume we're going to do IVF and therefore it's just going to be a done deal. And, we finally made this big decision and the baby's going to come 9 months later after we do our transfer. And
Hmm.
that's not how it works. And why is it so important for people to do the foundation? I mean, I talk about this all the time, but let's hear it from your perspective so they can hear somebody else preaching on why it's so important to get ahead of the game before you decide to go down that road and do an egg retrieval and all the things.
Yeah, so many reasons. We could probably have an hour conversation or longer on just this topic. But if your bodies were made to reproduce, like that is one of the things that it was made to do. And if it's not happening, there's a reason for it. And we need to determine what that reason is. And so if we're just trying to bypass that reason and say, oh, it doesn't matter what this is, we're just going to go around it and kind of force this to happen, that may or may not be successful for you. But what you're doing is ignoring your body and you're ignoring what it's trying to tell you, which is, hey, something's wrong and we need to correct this thing, not only to make you healthy today, to have hopefully a healthy pregnancy, but to make you healthier for the future so that you can have healthy children and that you could be a healthy parent for when they are born. And we're
Right.
not only helping them now, and helping your child's health, but you're helping their children. You're
Right.
helping generations down the road. This is such a valuable piece that we ignore. We are so focused today in our culture of getting immediate results. We want the pill that's going to fix things, and we want it just to happen, um, without putting in the work and effort to really correct some of the underlying issues. So that way we can actually create healthy children's, healthy families, healthy lives for these individuals. And this is profound. If we do this work now, we're going to be there to support them and live a healthy life moving forward. You're setting an important example for what they need to be doing moving forward when you have children. And it's like health insurance for the future. So
Right.
this is valuable, this work. And we all know that there are things that we are doing today that could be better, whether it's I need to be sleeping better, I need to be eating better, I need to be exercising. These are just core things that many of us are just not doing or not doing sufficiently enough. And those are things that are going to have profound effects on your overall health and your reproductive health, your hormones, and your fertility. And I think that that is essential work to be done moving
Right.
forward. Yeah.
And I think more and more of the MDs are recognizing that too. I mean, I remember when I first went in many years ago, I had gut issues forever. My MD, my RE never asked me once, how's your gut health? You
Huh.
know, there was no correlation between that. Still, when I go with patients to see their consults with their reproductive endocrinologist, that's not a conversation that they have. But we know that there is a correlation there between fertility, gut health, brain health, all the things, and
Yeah.
the importance of that in order to get your eggs and your sperm to where it needs to be all comes together in knowing, okay, that there's a problem if your body isn't functioning in the correct way, whether it's in a reproductive cycle or in some other way with your visceral system. That needs to be addressed before you start plowing down the road of, trying to get pregnant when your body is really inflamed from something else going on. And I think because the MDs aren't really recognizing that to say to somebody, well, what is happening with your overall health? Because if you're seeing a specialist for something, that's what they're going to focus
That's what
on.
they're going to focus on. Yep.
And no offense to them, but there is a bigger conversation to have. And that's where we start to see this with Dr. Sklar or ND or naturopaths or somebody else that can help you get to that point before you go into the RE to say, okay, I've cleaned everything up. I know what my underlying issues are. And now I'm ready because as Dr. Sklar mentioned, your success not only in your healthy pregnancy, because not only do we want you to get pregnant, we want you to have a healthy live birth, but we also want that baby to go on to have healthy children as well. And it all kind of starts from cleaning ourselves up, so to speak, to make sure that we're.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, you said it, and I'm just shaking, nodding my head, saying yes.
Yeah. I think the reason I bring that up is because look at your body as a whole, right? Because you might not be thinking, oh, my gut or stomach issues are related to that. And perhaps it's not directly related to that. But even still, get it figured out, right? Make sure that everything's good before you start to say, I'm going to add something else to this, or I'm going to try to, like you said, bypass the root issue of what else is going on.
Yeah, I will say, I think the reason why couples want to bypass things is they feel like they're wasting time. They feel like their time is running out and they're wasting time by focusing on digestive system, which they can't always
Right.
logically connect with their hormones and reproductive function, or they've just spent a lot of time before and now they feel like it's just ticking away. And I will say to you that it's only ticking away if you're sitting on your couch doing nothing proactive to address it. If you
Right.
are going to take steps, be proactive to support your health, support your fertility, support whatever's going on, then my belief and what I've seen over 21 years is that you're only going to be healthier and more fertile at the other side of that. So it's not like it's just ticking away. You're actually restoring your fertility, restoring your health. You're going to be more fertile. So you're actually preserving it if you're being proactive in that fashion.
100%. And anybody knows the pressure of age on fertility. I've been there. I know what it's like. And that's the one thing with this area of medicine. We don't have time. Time is not on our hands if we want to try to go down this natural route. I had a patient yesterday get a positive beta who just turned 50 in June, which is unusual.
Yeah, I love it.
Same time, like that pressure of age is real, and that
Yeah.
also causes other things, right? So I think we're both here to say we understand all aspects of the spokes in the wheel that are driving you to fertility and having your baby and building your family. But really, please look at the big picture of all of it, because you'll be better off for it in the end.
Yep, absolutely.
So, can you tell us again all the places that people can find you and learn from you, because it is such valuable information?
Yeah, my favorite resource for everyone is my YouTube channel, Fertility TV. Just head on to YouTube, type in Fertility TV, I'll pop up. I've got hundreds and hundreds of videos there. If you're looking for some answer to a question, I probably answered it on one of my videos. So that's my first place to check out. Outside of that, you could find me on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. Otherwise, just head on over to my website, marcsklar.com.
You just remind me. So, what is the most common question you get when you said, I probably answered it? What do you think?
I usually get, what supplements should I take? That's a super common one. Or it's a very general one, but like I get this every day. How can I get pregnant fast? Like literally that question is what I get asked all the time. Yeah.
Well, we'll leave it with that. And how you can get pregnant faster, I would say, is go to learn more, educate yourself, find out more from Dr. Sklar, because all of that information will help you get pregnant faster once you're educated and more aware of what's happening with your body. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Friends with Fertility. We hope that you found the stories, insights, and tips as inspiring and informative as we did. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Your friends with fertility are here for you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and more fertility resources. Until next time, stay hopeful and keep believing in your journey, and know that we are sending you lots of love.